Good afternoon. Welcome. Thank you all so much for joining us. I'm Josh Schimmels, publisher and CEO of the Los Angeles Business Journal, and it's a pleasure to be here hosting part 2 of our webinar series, Black Business Matters, Awareness to Action. Today's focus is on women leaders, and we have an outstanding conversation in store for you. In part 1 of our series, which was held on July 29th, we focused on issues such as access to capital, recruiting talent, and holding corporations accountable to their diversity pledges. Today, while similar topics may emerge, we're going to get perspectives on entrepreneurship, stereotypes, building businesses, and community. Once again, our hopes in hosting these conversations is that we leave you, the business community, more educated, informed, and inspired to take action. Here's how today's going to work. In just a moment, I'm going to introduce our panel. You can read more about each of our panelists by going to our website with the link that you see on our screen. We're going to be conducting live poll questions throughout the webinar. So when you see the question pop up on your screen, we'd love for you to participate and share your experience. We've set aside the last 15 minutes of the hour to respond to audience questions. We received a number of fantastic questions in the registration, so we thank you so much for being as engaged as you are. We'll be publishing the responses of the poll in Monday's edition of the Los Angeles Business Journal, and will also be published on our website. Before we get started, I want to thank our sponsors. We appreciate you being a part of this, your ongoing partnership, and all that you're doing to support our community of business. Special thanks to our 2 sponsors, Barnes & Thornburg. It's a pleasure to be doing another women's panel with the firm. I really appreciate and value the partnership. And the Black Cooperative Investment Fund. We had a chance to hear from its CEO last month, and today, one of its esteemed chairpersons. Also, many thanks to our community partner, the Greater Los Angeles African American Chamber of Commerce. Thank you all so much for helping to steer this conversation. All right, we have a lot of topics and we want to cover a lot of this, so we're going to hop right into it. It's now my pleasure to introduce our panel. First off, we have Cassie Betts, founder, Made in South LA Technology Academy. Melanie Mack, Vice Chair, BCIF, CEO, Identity Management, Chairman and CEO of Codega Media. Denise Pines, President of the California Medical Board and co-founder of Botanics. Dawn Rosemond, partner with Barnes & Thornburg. And our moderator, Amber Meshack, Director, Business Jobs and Social Responsibility Division with Los Angeles World Airports. Amber, thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you.
I'm very excited to be moderating this panel of outstanding Black women business leaders and definitely getting their wisdom and experience to share with the audience. And so I want to start with a question to all of the panel and basically asking, what advice would you give another Black woman in your position when you first started out who wants to become an entrepreneur? And so I want to start with you, Cassie. How about you answer first?
Can you guys hear me okay? Starting out as an entrepreneur, I'd say check your circles. Get into the proper circles of where it is you want to be. For example, when I went into tech, I didn't have any tech friends. I just was like, oh, I'm gonna create. I'm gonna get into tech. I'm gonna start a tech company, and I started to hang out in Silicon Beach more. I got on all the mailing lists. I got all the mentors I could who would listen, all the friends, all the support. You just have to go out there. There's a lot of events like this one where you meet people, and then you form your new circle of the industry and the space you want to be in.
Yeah, that's great. Networking is always great advice, and making sure that you building the right relationships. Melanie, what about your advice to an aspiring entrepreneur, Black woman? Wait, is the audio? Let me see if
it's me. Hi. So my advice would be to anyone looking to become an entrepreneur is to be prepared to take imperfect action. That is critical. Oftentimes I find many entrepreneurs that get stuck in what I call the paralysis of analysis, just in being able to take that first step. And also, you need to have thick skin for this particular role in terms of being an entrepreneur. It is the most difficult thing you will ever take on, but it's also the most rewarding.
Wonderful. How about you, Denise? That's, I think having a thick skin and taking imperfect action is great advice in life in general. What about you, Denise?
I agree. I have a couple. So first, I think implementing SOPs, which are just standard operating procedures for everything you do so that your company can run without you, even if you're a one-man bandit, meaning if you get sick, you can call someone and ask them to do something because you have a process of how everything gets done. Surrounding yourself, like Cassie said, you have to have team advisors. You have to have other people who are in the same boat you're in as entrepreneurs. And you always need to be learning new skills and new markets. And then last is learning to sell, like really learning how to sell as a salesperson, because you will always be selling as the person in your company. You're selling to distributors, you're selling to partners, you're selling to get money. Those would be my things.
Wonderful. And last but not least, what about you, Dawn? What's your advice to an aspiring entrepreneur?
I love this. I'm so glad to be here. I'm taking notes, so I'm really excited. So for me, I mean, all of the above, certainly. And then I think, for me, this is what I kind of have to live in. By definition, being a Black female entrepreneur, you are literally leading from the front. You're a trailblazer, just off top. And so you're going to have to learn to respect your own voice. You're going to have to, because you're just not going to make sense. You're not going to make sense to the bankers. You're not going to make sense to the partners that you need to get your business off and running. You're not going to make sense to a lot of folks. You're going to have to make sure that that's all right with you and that you respect your voice. And when you tell yourself, I got this, I can do this, I know that I'm in the right space, I know I should be here, I know I belong in the room, that's going to have to be good enough, because you're not going to get very many co-signers.
That's right. That's right. So we're talking about advice to potential entrepreneurs. So Melanie, I want to turn back to you and ask, why is ownership important? Why is it important for Black people, Black women, to be the owners of that business that is at the forefront, that's blazing the trail?
Entrepreneurship and ownership in particular is critically important. And I say this all the time. I have 3 sons. They are 17, 18, and 22. And one of the things that I teach them is that I cannot pass on a job to you. Jobs are wonderful, and not taking anything away from that. But with ownership, you're really creating legacy and things that your family or friends can step into, and you can continue to build. And it's something that is long lasting versus, a job comes to an end. My father, who had a wonderful job for many years, I don't think he ever missed a day of work outside of having to bury his mother and one or two siblings. And, at the end of the day, he received certificate that you can get from Staples and a gold pendant, and that that's not anything that you can that you can pass on to someone. So I believe that ownership is critical to wealth building, specifically in the Black community. It's something that we need.
Wonderful, thank you. So Denise, I want to turn to you now and say, given the importance of ownership and Black business to our legacies, to our communities, what are the barriers that you, as a Black-owned business, as a Black woman-owned business, face? And of course, any suggestions for overcoming those barriers?
I think what generally we face is access to people, right? A lot of times people want to say access to capital, but it really is access to people, because if you begin to get access to people, you get access to knowledge in your industry, you get access to capital, you get access to experience, you get access to partners. You basically get access to everything you need to be successful. I've been incredibly fortunate that I've had access to people, but I didn't start that way. I figured out what I needed, and whenever I went to someone, I made sure that I was giving them something. We sort of forget that when we go in asking for something as to what can we give someone, even if they're a CEO. So before I meet with people, mostly, now we're meeting people over the phone. I try to find out as much about them as possible, right? To find a connective tissue and something that's going to be organic, not like, oh, I see you do fly fishing. Tell me about that. Like, if I don't know anything about fly fishing, they're going to know that and they're not going to care about talking to me about it. But if I did fly fishing, we would have more of a more integrated conversation. So find something that you can really interject in that conversation. And then that way you have you have a sticky with that person, right? So yesterday, I'll give you an example of something I did. I co-authored a report called Femme Aging Health 2020. And I released that report in June, and I've been reaching out to venture capital firms to have a conversation about this data and provide them with a roadmap, hopefully that it will spur investments into innovations for women who are between 40 and 65. With the current climate, what I did is I started to have conversations knowing these companies are evaluating their equity framework, meaning they're evaluating what, do they have any Black companies in their portfolio? So I sort of used the report to take advantage of telling them that a larger presentation beyond the person I was talking to their broader VC team would net them a few takeaways. It would net them education in aging women of color. It would net them me giving them some language and messaging points, and I would help them on how to position their firm for the future of these innovations in the area. So this meeting happened because of the access, right? I have access to someone who had access to the CEO, and that got that meeting. But once I got that meeting, I had to make sense to that person. So, getting access, don't blow it and waste somebody's time. Have a goal of what you want to achieve. Listen to what they're saying. Don't be so fixed out on what you want to say, because they may have something bigger to offer you.
Right. That's great. So
Can I add to that real quick?
sure, absolutely, Cassie.
I think one of the biggest barriers, sometimes, especially in Black women, is ourselves. Honestly, I look at, I'm in all these different circles, and in the circles with like white males, they don't have these caps they put on themselves. They're like, yeah, I can raise 10 million. What? It's like that, but for us, we're like, 10 million is a lot of money, because we haven't done this. So we're scared or whatever. Any barriers that I face, I had to get past my own personal barriers. And I see that with a lot of my colleagues. And I think it's really important for us to focus on our mental health. We don't do that enough. Our self-care, we don't do that enough. We just think we're strong Black women and we got this, but that is actually the most important thing we have to do in this endeavor for our careers, because if our mental's not right, we're not going anywhere.
That's great. That's great advice. So I want to turn to Dawn now and kind of bring it back to, why are we having this conversation? We have this great esteemed panel of Black women. Why is it important for us to have this conversation about the barriers that Black women face, strategies for Black women to use, and how do we differentiate that from some of the challenges that women as a whole would face, or even other women of color? So yeah. What's your answer to that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, there's this, I'm going to mess it up, I'm sure, but it's something like, when you don't understand the purpose of a thing, and I'm going to mess around with it, when you don't understand either the nature of something or what have you, abuse is inevitable. And I think that's, I'm going to make it fit here. We're just unique. We're not, when we talk about, why we're assembled, as opposed to all women or, a myriad of women of color. We have unique challenges. We carry unique burdens. We have a unique voice. And we face unique obstacles because of the intersectionality of our race and our gender. And if we don't understand that and speak to that, deal with that and unearth that, to Cassie's point, to deal with the issues that get created as a result of that, we're the ones who suffer. In the work that I get to do for my firm, we have, I lead our efforts in this regard in terms of our diversity, inclusion, and equity efforts. And we oftentimes talk about women's issues and things of that nature. And I often have to tell them, you're talking about women's issues, but you're not necessarily talking about me. And we have to make sure, I have to make sure that we don't get left off the table. And so this kind of conversation to me is critical, because Black women, and I say this a lot too. I mean, we're just, and statistics bear this out. We're never preferred. Typically, that doesn't move me, but we're never preferred. We're at the bottom of most of these lists if you live by those statistics. And so we have to get in a space where we start choosing ourselves, dealing with our own challenges, and helping one another navigate through them. They are very distinct from our other female counterparts, but leveraged properly, make us incredibly powerful. And I think we just have to spend more time talking about them and helping each other navigate.
That's wonderful. So it's about, being your authentic self, having our voice at the table, making sure that we are addressing the issues that pertain to us as Black women. And so, Cassie, turning to you now, looking over your illustrious career to date, and as a Black woman, what would you potentially do differently or do better now that you have the experience under your belt?
Well, thank you for the illustrious career. You know what I would do differently? When I got into tech, I got all these great advisors and mentors and things, and they all told me what to do, literally step by step, basically. Hold on, this poll popped up. And I didn't listen. There was one thing that I just did not want to do that literally every mentor told me to do, and I did not listen. I thought I knew better. I thought I knew better than these, millionaires and billionaires who've been around the block 10 times.
What was that thing? I'm sorry to interrupt, but I really want to know what that thing was.
Oh God, I'm so embarrassed. They told me, like, before you build out your platform, I started District 2, which is a fashion tech company, but they told me, like, before you even get to the tech part, like building out your platform and like running with that, prove your concept, get your clients, get your customers first. They told me go door to door and literally manually get these customers and onboard them even before you build a platform. And I didn't listen, and I built the platform, and it was a mistake, and now I see it's so funny because now I mentor startups, both youth, kids who have businesses, start businesses, and tech startups. And I tell them the same thing. And for some reason, no one wants to do that. Everyone wants to build the app, everyone wants to build the marketplace and spend $50,000 on this app or whatever the cost is, when you don't need to do that first. You need to prove your concept with Google Forms and emails and running around in the background, with it being sloppy and messy. And, being a perfectionist, I'm like, you want me to just release a sloppy, messy, Google form? So the concept was insane to me, but I should have listened. Now I know better. I have done several times over since then. I've helped other businesses start really scrappy, and that's really the way to go. It should not be perfect. It should have bugs. There should be issues. You're going to fail over and over and over again. It's okay. So, I didn't listen. And that would be the thing that I would go back and change, but maybe I needed to, hit my head. So I don't really regret it, but
that experience proves some of the concepts and the advice that some of the other women have shared about, knowing that you're going to meet a need when you walk into that room, and turning that social capital into, real financial capital, and as well as taking imperfect action. So I think yours has just illustrated the wisdom of their advice. So, but sometimes you need actual real capital. You got to take that social capital and then actually get that real capital. So I want to ask you, Melanie, to give us some insight about the loan process of BCIF and how it's different and how you raise money, and why is this something that Black women entrepreneurs need to know about?
Sure. Well, capital is always important. I remember starting out as an entrepreneur and launching my first business. I met with over 30 VCs and received rejections over wanting to basically stream content over the internet. And the internet was, still new. People were figuring it out. And this was the late 90s, and I was able to raise $1.5 million for capital to launch my business. With BCIF, we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we exist to provide microloans to African Americans, Black people that are in the Southern California region. Our microloans range from $5,000 to $20,000, and as an entrepreneur, I know, $5,000 when you don't have it. If you don't have $20, it's a lot of money, and it can be that lifeline that helps someone launch, grow, or scale, sustain and scale their business. And so what we do is, it's important for Black women in particular, because with the 4 loans that we have been able to provide, 99% of them have gone to Black women. Black women-owned businesses. We've funded a company called CHNO, which is the biological structure for melanin. We've funded Ride On Bike Shop, which is right here in Los Angeles in Leimert Park. You see them in the new video with Pharrell, the entrepreneur video. Also RCO Tires, which is a woman who is in Compton and has a brick and mortar space. And she's recycling tires and making all kinds of incredible goods, as well as recently we funded a tech company called Mayavana, and they provide an app for Black women in their hair care and learning, the different textures of hair and how to nurture and care for your hair. So it's important, because most of the people that come to BCIF, we are many times a last resort for them. They've gone through the traditional lending system and they've been turned down, and these are solid businesses. Many of them come to us with their financial houses in order, and they simply need a lifeline to get started, and as I said, or to grow their business. And so I'm very proud of that we're able to have this dynamic board that brings to the table work, wisdom, and wealth. And we're actually providing tangible ways to grow and to have equal footing here in Los Angeles. And it's really a wonderful thing to see and to be a part of.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. So as someone who provides capital to a couple entrepreneurs, I want to turn the next question to Cassie and Denise, who are entrepreneurs, and let us know about, the product or service that you're most proud of creating, the product or service that you were ready to walk into that potential client or that potential, financier and say, hey, put your money behind this idea. And so why don't you start, Cassie, and then Denise.
Right. So
and also, what sparked the idea, and who did you intend this product that you're proud of, or this service that you're proud of?
Oh, well, what sparked the idea? That's a long story, so I don't know how to even shorten.
Well, let's start with the product itself first.
The product is the community of South LA. That is the product that I stand behind. I have a nonprofit called Made in South LA, or MISLA. And so what we're doing with South LA, we are building a tech center. We have these boot camps with focus on technology, multimedia, in training youth and adults in the South LA area in this very high level tech. And so I'm proud of the people that are coming out of there. I'm proud of the kids that are building apps, the kids that I see that, now are making $25 an hour at age 19, which is pretty good at age 19. Coming out of our tech center, coming out of our boot camps. I'm proud of our instructors, just to see this really happening. And what got me to it, I'll try to make it super short. If you go to my IG, you'll see the story, but I basically, when I was 19, I was kidnapped and I had a gun put to the back of my head, and I literally said a prayer in that moment to God. And I said, if I live past this moment, I swear to God, I will change the world. And so that's kind of, well, don't cry, girl. Don't you cry. Okay. Long story short, that's what got me here. And I've just been through a lot. I went through a lot as a teenager, and I'm able to connect very quickly and easily with at-risk, high-risk youth, gang members, prostitutes, drug dealers, you know, those types, and kind of get them to see this other side. Like, you know, there's a lot of money in tech over here, guys. It's a legit hustle, you know, so let's look into this. And people are really interested in coming on board. I'm super thankful for, you know, Vermont Slauson, who gave their building to do this tech center, and Annenberg and Best Buy, who we've raised like about $750,000 so far for it all. So that's my biggest, proudest achievement. It's just purpose. You know, there's a purpose there, and it just feels a lot more different than the money I've made with products that don't have this, you know, this ethical service, community service behind it. It just feels really good.
Right, so that's wonderful. So that your service or product is actually an investment in the rest of the community. And I think that gets back to the earlier idea of legacy. So turning now to Denise, what is the product or service that you feel most proud of, that you are glad to consider part of your legacy, and who and what inspired the product or service?
So there's kind of two things, because I wear sort of two hats. But the product, the tangible product, is something called Hot Flash Tea that came out of my own personal experience with hot flashes. And that eventually led me to become what I call an age enthusiast, because I found that as women get older, they become rendered invisible and sort of discarded. And so I have, as a result, I've really sort of taken this issue on. So it started off with my own personal experience and problem, and solving that by creating a product with a doctor who is the co-founder of our company. And then I end up talking to so many women about their own midlife health issues that I created this event called Wise Pause Lifestyle, which this year we're doing as a virtual event. And it happens to be this Saturday, a little plug here. It's Saturday, September 12th. People can go to wisepause.com. And so I brought together all of these doctors and health and therapeutic experts from around the world. We have people from the UK, from Italy, to help women understand what's going on with their bodies. And then that led me to creating and co-authoring a report called Femme Aging Health Tech 2020 that I spoke about early on, to get venture capitalists and to get more startups into creating products for women 40 to 65. Because when you think and look at women's health, it is all centered around fertility, pregnancy, and parenthood. And once you exit out of that realm, you'll never exit out of parenthood if you're a parent. But once you exit out of that realm, that puts you between 18 and sort of 40, there's nothing, nobody else is focusing on you. And what's interesting is that the older population has more money, more power and influence, and yet they have less people focusing innovations on them. And so my biggest next undertaking, again, all in the same lane, all coming from this one experience, I'm now working with a number of people to get medical schools to have midlife curriculum about women and aging, that every student would have to take to, and also looking at re-educating current doctors so that the women who go to see them are not told it's in your head or given a bunch of hormones. So that's sort of like my product thing, but I would say probably what I'm most passionate about is I produced a film called Push Out the Criminalization of Black Girls in School. And that film, I always talk about the power of media. And that film is literally changing Black girls' lives all around the country and really around the world, because we've been to the UK and Toronto with it. And it's being used as a tool for schools to change how they have been interacting with Black girls specifically. And this film has won a lot of awards for Best Documentary, Audience Awards. It was nominated for an Image Award, and it led to a bill called Bill HR 5325 called Ending Push Out Act. So that's my passionate work, but it's also, I'm on the same track with two companies.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that the two examples that you shared really tap into the specific experience of, young Black women and girls, and then, maturing Black women coming into their power of wisdom and like you said, financial power. And so I think that's a great segue to ask Dawn a question about what are the powers or the superpowers, if you will, that we as Black women have, and what is the mission? How do we use that to empower ourselves, empower others, and just change the systems in which we operate?
I love that, superpower. So I don't know if you know, you wouldn't know, but I have a little bit of an obsession with superheroes, and so I love that phrasing as it relates to Black women, Black females. I mean, my goodness, when I listened to what Cassie just talked about, what Denise just talked about, you couldn't tell me that we're not in the company. What Melanie is doing, you can't tell me we're not. What you're doing, I'm not sitting in the company of superheroes. And so, I think, when I talk about, learning to respect your voice, what I said earlier, one of the things that's critical too is that in respecting your voice, certainly what's coming out of your mouth needs to be truth. And the truth about us as Black women, as Black female leaders and Black female executives, notwithstanding all the stats and stuff that's out there that I said before, I mean, since the beginning of time, we are powerful and resourceful and strong, and we are survivors. My gosh, we are trailblazers. And so, we have to know that first. And I could go on and on. I mean, we just don't have enough time. We have to know that. We have to know it when we don't feel like it. Because it's, again, talking about, the absence of any co-signing, there's also going to be the absence of any affirmation in that regard, especially in these places. You're launching out on your own or you're sitting in a corporate space. I don't know if anybody ever has come up to me and like, Dawn, I think you're a superhero. It's all right. I'll tell myself that. And so it's critical that we respect that. And then what's the mission? I think for me, and it's certainly the way I'm built, but I think when you listen to everybody, what they're talking about, I think everybody would agree. I mean, certainly any superhero's mission, again, I told you I'm a little obsessed, is to use your powers for good, right? I think our role here is to make room. I mean, we just have to. If we keep talking about, we're in these spaces where we're one only or the only one or one of a few, then it behooves us to then make sure that when we're holding court wherever we are, that we're making room for the Dawns and the Cassies and the Denises and the Melanies and the Ambers coming after us. They are watching us. Without question, they are watching us, trying to figure out, how do I get to where we are, and all of what, wherever it is that we are, even though we can, discern that we have a long way to go, there's somebody looking. I always say, when I get a chance to speak, we are someone's possible. And so they are watching us. And so I think it's our job to make room in our spaces. If we're going to, launch out and hang out our own flag and become an entrepreneur, then make sure we do so with a mindfulness. And if we're in a space that is somebody else's environment, making sure that in the spaces when we're going in the rooms that we're teaching them excellence looks like us so that we can make room. I think that's the mission for us.
Wow, I like, oh, sorry, somebody else want to chime in?
I was just going to add to one thing. You know how we're taught as little girls literally, I swear, the moment we come out of the womb, as soon as we can understand English, it's told to us that you have to be twice as good.
That's right.
I know we've all heard this, you got to be twice as good, you got to be twice as good, and then, when I got into tech, I was told I need to be 3 times as good. Twice was not enough. You're in tech now, you got to be 3 times as good. And I actually, now that I am where I am, that's kind of my superpower. The fact that I was like, I gotta be twice as good. I gotta be 3 times as good. It wasn't something I looked at as a hindrance. It was something I looked at as, on one hand, kind of sucked that I gotta be 3 times as good just to get, you know, half of what they got. But on the other hand, once you are recognized, being the only Black woman in the room, everybody's looking like, okay, what did she do to get it? And that's just the serious, because if she got in this room, trust and believe she's on top of her game. So I think that is our superpower, the fact that it was so hard for us to get ahead. I think that actually made us better in a sense. You know, all the bad things we went through just kind of made us stronger, and that is a superpower.
That's exactly what I'm talking about, Cassie. That's that resourcefulness. I mean, I'm raised by a single Black mother. I tell people, I sit in rooms sometimes with people, making millions of dollars and managing, billion-dollar companies, all these different things. And I've never met a money manager better than my mother. Come on.
Sure.
I mean, what she has been able to do with $100 over 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's magic. That's
magic.
That's why I tell VCs, I'm like, look at your portfolios. Your Black women-owned tech companies are killing it the most. It is statistically proven. There's a reason for that. It's because we made things happen with $0. Give us $1 million, we'll kill it. Kill it.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah.
You can turn 15 cents into $1, then what can you do with $1 million, right?
That's right.
So yeah, so the superpowers include just being able to hype ourselves up, being able to tap into that resilience and into that that legacy. But I think that this is also, I think, the moment, like you said, we don't want to be the only one. And so even though we've all had success, I do want to turn to Melanie and just say, not only, what has been your key to success to getting into those rooms, but also, what is that call to action right now to institutions about how we can not be the last one or the only one in the room? We do want to change that. So Melanie, how would you address that question? Oh, I think you're on mute, Melanie.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Amber, can you repeat that, the first part, please?
Sure, Melanie, I was just saying, in terms of our superpower, we have a way of kind of getting ourselves into these rooms, and sometimes we're the only ones there. And I just wanted to get from you, it's kind of a 2-part question. One, what do you think has been your key to success to getting in those rooms, to making things happen? But also, what is our call to action for, so that we're no longer the only Black woman in the room? How do we expand the space? How do we, call for institutional change where we are?
Yeah, that's, for me, I would say some of the keys to my success have been, one, just learning not to be afraid of failure. Secondly, I would say, I don't conform. I don't do well when I'm put in a box. And because, as Dawn said, we are Black girl magic. And if we are, forced to, work within certain confines, it really restricts our ability to excel. And so I think nonconformity is important. And also finding allies. I think Denise spoke to this as well. It's the people that, like I would say human capital and the relationships that you build and cultivate. And you have to build those relationships before you need them, because they are also critical to your success. So those are some of the things that have helped me in my career, is just, again, nonconformity. I just, I wish I had known when I was, a younger woman in my 20s that, there really aren't any steadfast rules that, that you have to follow. Especially being an entrepreneur, there are certain things that you need to do, but I was someone that I thought, oh, you just keep your head down and you tend to your knitting and you do your work and you're going to be recognized, because everything is a meritocracy. No, it is not. So you have to work and you have to make your own rules and play hard. And then when we are in these rooms, as Dawn said, we have to make space for other women. And I really think that that's the call to action, is if we're the only woman a Black woman, and I know oftentimes I am always the only Black woman in a room, but if we're not making space for someone to come behind us or to come alongside, then I don't think that we are doing our jobs. We have to pull each other up as we climb.
Thank you. And Denise, I'd like to ask you the same question. What has been your key to success? I think you shared quite a number of real, foundational strategies that you used, but then also moving into how do you make that space for the next Black woman to come along?
Good question. So I would say for me, as a leader, it's having the ability to change minds, right? So, to get things done, you have to, if you want to move people a certain way, you've got to be able to have the kind of oral and written communication skills that sync up thinking and the speaking, right? Sync up the thinking and the speaking. And because I wear so many hats, the president of the Medical Board of California, I need to understand the legal process, the terminology. I need to understand how the state laws work. I need to understand regulation. I got to understand medical terminology. As a business owner, I wear two different hats. I sort of mentioned that before, but I need to understand consumer packaged goods. I need to know the simple to the complex in marketing and sales and distribution, the supply chain. And then as a film producer, I need to understand cameras and shooting and talent and storylines and networks and legal. So I'm constantly having to pause myself and know what hat am I wearing? And then to who am I talking to and what language do I need to use in this conversation, right? So a lot of times we want to come with the same language to everything that we're engaging in. And you're not going to grow, right? And that's that maybe you have to be twice as good kind of thing. If you're trying to approach everything that with the same language, right? So I would say that and also that I'm an executor, meaning if I have an idea, I can get it done, right? I may not even know all the bits and pieces in between. I'm clear about what the idea is, and I'm clear about that I can get it done, and I figure out the rest that's in between. In terms of helping our fellow sisters, I always make myself accessible to anybody that wants to call, even if I'm busy. I might say, dang, they sent me this while I'm busy. I'll find a moment inside my day to respond or to talk to the person, right? I always, if I'm busy, I start off the conversation, I've got 10 minutes. Let's get what you need, right?
Right. So making yourself a resource is one of the ways that we start to make space for each other, as well as, so the last question I want to turn to Dawn before we turn to the audience questions, because we know we've talked about some of the barriers that Black women face, certainly implicit bias or preconceived notions about Black women and how we carry ourselves, whether it be that we're angry or that we're, a pack mule, we'll just do whatever we're told to do, whatever have you. So how do you navigate specifically these stereotypes or these preconceived notions about Black women? And how do you, turn what was intended for evil into good? How do you use it for your good?
That's a good question. I'm not even sure I even try to navigate it anymore, if that makes any sense. I have been called, we all have angry, and there's been a time, a version of me where I was concerned that they were going to think I was the angry Black girl or whatever. I just don't care anymore about any of that. I don't think that we should. I don't think what other people hold or how other people define their perception of our limits has anything to do with us. I'm angry sometimes because you do things that make me angry. And I'm a human, and I have a right as a human to behave or to respond to that. I think that at the end of the day, and something, Cassie, that you actually said, I think this has to be an inside job. When we walk in those rooms, all those things you talk about, the stereotypes, I wonder what they're thinking of me. I wonder if they think I belong here. I've done all of that. I wear this bracelet that says I am enough to remind myself every day every single day. Because when you walk in those rooms, whether the boardroom or the bank or whatever it is, you have to go in understanding that you belong there. It may not result in the thing that you want. You may not get the job, you may not get the loan, you may not whatever. That just means there's another opportunity coming. But it doesn't have to be a referendum on who you are. So, you know, I can't control, we can't control whether or not somebody thinks we're the angry Black girl or not. But I'll be daggone if I'm gonna sit in a room and something is said that's offensive and I'm gonna sit here and act like I didn't hear it, or act like they're not talking about me or anything like that. Again, to me, that's part of making room. Because if we don't teach them when we're holding court in those rooms that what was just said is inappropriate, that this type of behavior is not okay, or this is not consistent with precedent, this is not what we do with other people, then the young lady that's coming after us is gonna have to contend with that very thing. And I think that then falls on us. And so I don't even try, I don't know if the right word is navigate anymore. Their shortcomings, the proverbial they, their shortcomings regarding what they think I am or am not as a Black female, I just don't have the energy for it anymore. I'm not saying things don't hurt my feelings. I'm not saying that I have not had to go back in my office and shut the door and cry, but at the end of the day, not gonna break me. And I know if I'm showing up in the room, I have a purpose. I have a voice just like they do. I think it was Michelle Obama who said like she'd been in the room with kings and dignitaries and all these people and stuff, and they just not that smart. They're not smarter than me. They're not smarter than her. And and you got to tell yourself that so that you stay present in the moment. But I don't think we have to. I'd encourage everyone listening, don't try to navigate that stuff or try to manage other people's sensitivities with regard to things that have no factual basis or merit. Just show up. Just show up and teach them why you belong there. I think that's where we start. I think that's where the power lies.
Well, that's a great, I think that's a great, perfect wrap up for now turning to the audience. If we know nothing else, we know keep our eyes on the prize and use whatever seat you have that you're sitting in, use it for good, and make sure that that voice is heard. So thank you. Thank you to our wonderful panel, our great panelists. Now we're gonna give the opportunity to the audience to ask a few questions. So I think, Josh, are you?
Yes, thank you so much, Amber. And thank you to all of our panelists. I apologize. Thank you all for sticking with us. I know we had some audio difficulties in the beginning. Thanks for lasting it out with us. You know, for us, this is now our part 2 of the series, Black Business Matters. And our hopes, again, are that we're able to walk away from these conversations, leaving the business community, our readers, more informed, educated, inspired to take action. And we can't do it without such amazing panelists and partners. I want to thank our partners again. You know, Barnes and Thornburg, you guys have been fantastic. Dawn, I really appreciate the partnership. This is now my second opportunity to be on a part of a women's panel with the firm. So I really value and appreciate the relationship. Thank you so much. I also want to acknowledge the Black Cooperative Investment Fund. You know, last month we had an opportunity to hear from its CEO, and today one of its esteemed chairpersons. So thank you so much for all that you're doing to be a part of this. You know, we've had some great conversations, and now we're going to turn it over to address some of the questions that were submitted from our audience. But before I hand it back to you to moderate, Amber, I'm going to actually ask you to respond to our first question here. What types of mentorship or sponsorship opportunities would you recommend for women to get involved in? And perhaps share a little bit about what's worked best for you in your own experiences.
Wonderful. So for me, I always look at it from an institutional lens. You know, I'm not an entrepreneur. I represent a public agency that spends a lot of money. So from my perspective, I think it's important for us to create the incentives for the companies that we work with to be investing in, you know, sponsorship opportunities, mentorship opportunities, and building their teams from within and opening their doors wider. So I'm constantly looking at, like, how do we create those incentives from an institutional point of view. As an individual, the advice that I always share is to make sure that you have not just one mentor, but really like a kitchen cabinet of mentors. And you should have mentors that you identify, that you know with, that look like you, Black women, you know, Black men, someone from your, you know, hometown, whatever it is that you identify with, it's important to you. But I think it's also very important, you know, coming back to some of the advice that Denise gave and other panelists, is to really, you know, have that older white male mentor. I mean, a lot of times that, you know, established white male mentor, you know, can provide a lot of access and advice to help you get into those rooms, or even, you know, to sponsor you to get into those rooms. So that's something that I always advise that women do. So, I mean, I think that's just where we are, and and I always want to challenge, you know, white men to really broaden and really look at who you can open a door for, and really consider how you can use your power for good, as it were, as well, or to expand equity and access. So on that note, I think I want to turn it over to some of the panelists to ask, on behalf of the audience, what are 3 tips on how to succeed as a Black female leader in a workplace that really wasn't meant for you? And whether that's just, I think you've given a lot of that information, but if there's any kind of specific tips that you didn't get to mention, we definitely want to leave the audience with those.
I would like to say, kill it. You know, you gotta kill it. You gotta kill it, and be an advocate for yourself. You know, something I noticed that I didn't do well at first was to brag on myself. We just weren't raised that way. You know, like bragging is bad. You know, it's vanity and all that. But white men, boy, can they brag on themselves. You know, and so I learned that it's necessary, because when you kill it, you need to make sure everyone knows that you were the one that killed it, not Bradley. You know, Cassie killed it, because I've had Bradley take the, you know what I mean, the credit for me killing it before, or someone else. And it happens a lot. You know, it happens in every industry. I was in the fashion industry. It happened there, the tech industry, you know, and so I make sure that everybody knows that, you know, I do want the credit, actually, because when I get the credit, then people come to me. You know, if they know that I'm the one who was the voice and the visionary for this tech center, now that helps me move farther. If I did it in Hidden Figure style, you know what I mean? I would stay hidden, you know? So yeah, advocate for yourself, and advocate for yourself in every way. You know, also your you know, your dollars, your funding, your money, your salary, advocate, speak up, and don't be afraid to know your worth and go for it.
Those are great tips. Melanie, do you want to respond to the same question?
Sure. Again, don't conform. Be your authentic self. I would say communicate early, often, and late. Communication is important. Just to echo what Cassie was saying about bragging on yourself, that is so important, and it is so antithetical to what most of us have been taught. But it is important to get credit for the things that you have done, that you've executed. I know I've sat in a room where, you know, I brought $400,000 to the table, and the board wanted to talk about cupcakes. So it's important that you advocate for yourself, and that you do take credit, even when you're being told that, you know, your board is I averse. You have to overcome those things. And also finding allies. Allies are so important. I can't emphasize that enough. And one of the things that Denise said, I love what all the women on the panel have said, but Denise mentioned, you know, just mentorship, and, you know, mentors are important, allies. And, you know, I too have, one of my mentors is a white male. I have all kinds of mentors, but one in particular is, you know, is a white male billionaire who can offer some insight into things and access that I otherwise would not have access or be afforded those opportunities. So those are some of the things that I find to be, again, critically important.
I would jump in and say that learning to make decisions fast, right? As an entrepreneur, you have to make fast decisions, good decisions, but fast decisions. There's a book called The Decision Book that has about 50 different decision-making strategic thinking models. And I periodically read this book to help me rethink sometimes how to solve a problem. Because people who can make fast decisions are the people that other people invest in. And for example, I mean, the companies that are still complaining about the coronavirus, they're not going to make it. They are not making the decisions that they need to make right now. And so it's the ones that made the decisions days after lockdown and decided to pivot, even if it meant they were completely flipping upside down what they did, as they had something that they could still continue to do. That's the kind of fast decision making that we have to do. And we live in a fast society. Technology has made us fast. If you could not get with using Zoom, you were probably not going to be a panelist on anything if you were a leader. So we got to learn how to make fast decisions, good decisions, but to be comfortable to make them fast.
So I think a couple audience questions speak to that, which is once you make those decisions, or just in general, how do you have confidence in your decision, and how do you maintain confidence in yourself, especially if you are the only one in the room? Denise can answer, or someone else on the panel as well.
I mean, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Denise.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just have to, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Don. I already talked.
No, it's okay. It's all right. No, I just wanted to, Amber, if you could ask it again. I want to make sure I get it right. How do you maintain confidence? Say it again.
I think this is a question from an audience member, and so it's how do you maintain your strong sense of confidence, especially when we often are the only Black woman in the room?
I think that question presupposes, or at least the way I hear it, is really grounded in how you feel a bit. I mean, there's some sort of kind of, the way I hear it, the audience member, correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I hear that is, how do I still feel confident, or you said maintain or feel confident when I'm only one in the room. I don't, no, there's no affirmation coming my way, those sorts of things. And I honestly think it's maybe the wrong measure, or maybe a better way to say it, feelings, I say this a lot, feelings track comfort, not truth. And so you have to know that you may not have any feelings to back it up, but you got to stand in there anyway, is what I'm trying to say. I mean, that's what I'm trying to get to. I mean, I think, when you're the only one in the room, there's such an opportunity. I've learned. I used to struggle and be scared. When I first became a partner, I remember my first partner meeting, I was terrified to go to the meeting. I waited until about 5 minutes before the cocktail hour was over, because I had never felt so Black and so female in my life until I went to this meeting. I was like, oh my gosh, I really am the only one. But I realized I finally grew into myself, into my, and into a place where I'm like, this is such an opportunity. And so when you talk about maintaining the confidence, it's really about, I'm telling myself over and over and over again, I'm just as qualified as these other folks. And a matter of fact, I'm the only one that's like me here. So I get to teach them something and I get to hold court in this regard. And so I think you have to learn to embrace, I heard a person saying, I'd steal it shamelessly. If I'm gonna be the only one in the room, then I'm gonna be the only one in the room. You're gonna know I'm there. And you're gonna know how powerful that is to be on the board, so that again, you create an opportunity for that not to be the story. That's not a badge of honor. I don't like being the only one.
Right. So I think that's a great way to wrap this up. We want to be respectful of everyone's time. So I think the last question that we'll be able to take from the audience is really, if you are the only one in the room, or if there's maybe two of you, how do we have the conversation about diversity, sustainability, equity in the workplace? How do we, again, kind of push the envelope, push the conversation, and create a call to action for institutions, our businesses, our workplaces to respond to. I will ask, I think that I would like to ask Dawn, even though you just spoke, to respond, as well as how about Melanie, since you are kind of working from both sides as far as being in one of those institutions that has responded.
How do we create a call to action? Is that right?
Yeah, how do you have the conversation about really, I think really race, equity, those are all difficult conversations to have, diversity.
I think you, and this sounds so simplistic, and I do not mean to make it so, because it is not, but you have to simply just begin, and it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be, there is no silver bullet, no right answer to this. It's hard work. It's people work. And it's really, really uncomfortable at times, especially for the majority. As you know, when they've been largely, they've been the majority in the room and the only one speaking often. It's hard, but I think you have to start it. And so I think we all have the power. I mean, yes, this is my role. And so I get to lead some of these initiatives and these programmatic efforts. But I think regardless of what your role is, whether you're in an organization or you're, again, holding out your shingle as an entrepreneur, you have to begin to create forums, whether it be at a lunch table or more formal, to begin to have these conversations in a meaningful way. And then certainly, if you have the ear of decision makers, and we all do, begin to pull them in deliberately into those conversations. And for me, making sure that we're trying to drive accountability in that regard. But you have to start. Just have to get started. It's not going to be comfortable. It may not even be pretty, but it's very necessary.
So just got to go for it. Melanie, do you want to take the last word on this?
Sure. I absolutely, I echo everything that Dawn just stated. I do think that you simply have to begin. You have to, if you want the conversation in the room, you have to put the conversation on the table, and you have to start the conversation. It's, you can also, before you enter that room, you can have one-on-one conversations with people that, where there may be a certain level of rapport and comfort level to have your allies ready, when you put that conversation on the table, so you can bring other people into the room with you to have difficult conversations. But it's, as Don said, it's not pretty. It's nothing that you can tee up perfectly. You simply need to begin. And also, in terms of helping to level the playing field, one of the things that I love about serving as vice chair for BCIF is that our loan review process, for example, the people that donate to BCIF, they have a seat at the table. And when do you go to a bank or wherever you bank, when do you have a seat at the table and you get to make decisions about who those loans are going to? So our donors that are giving $1,000 or more a year, they've made a 1-year commitment. They make up our loan review committees, and they have financial backgrounds, and they sit and they decide who is going to be funded through BCIF. And that's one of the unique things. And that is a tangible way to be involved and to make a difference in your community.
Thank you.
Can I just say real 5 seconds?
Sure.
I know we got to go. 5 seconds, but yes, exactly what Melanie said. I think that making people put their money and their actions where their mouth is. There's a lot of people right now. Black Lives Matter happened. I saw so many people, down for the cause. And so when I reached out, one of the things I said was, yes, thank you for your money, but really I want your people. I want your involvement. I want your actions. We have people now, like, don't just give us the fish, teach us how to fish, so we have literally people like Hawk Media doing boot camps with our youth, literally in the room right there with us to teach us how to do this digital marketing on their level, how to, and get us in the room. So make people step up. That's where we're at.
Thank you. I think that's a great place to leave it. And I think that, what you said is bring your allies, stake your place and keep your eyes on the prize. And so with that, I think it's been great to be a part of this conversation, and I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Josh and let him wrap it up for us. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, Amber, and thank you to Cassie, Melanie, Denise, and Dawn for really for your time today and for your outstanding perspectives. We really appreciate it. I want to remind everyone that we are going to have a recorded version of the entire webinar. It'll be posted on labusinessjournal.com. We'll also be sending it out to about 60,000 business leaders throughout Los Angeles within the next couple of days in the email digital format. We'll be sharing it on social media. And really, we do that because this is a way for the conversation to live on beyond the time constraints that we have here today. And for those who were not able to join us, can still listen to and learn from the conversation. I want to thank Barnes and Thornburg once again, the Black Cooperative Investment Fund, and our friends at the Greater Los Angeles African American Chamber of Commerce. We thank you all so much for tuning in today, and we look forward to hosting this again soon. Thank you so much.